What is up, folks? Another UFC pay-per-view coming on and another interview with Dana White. I am Kevin Iole. That is Dana White, and UFC 278 is on Saturday in Salt Lake City. Dana, it seems like every time I talk to you, you're telling me about sellout crowds and great fight cards and arena records. Can we expect another arena record and sellout crowd in Salt Lake City?
We do. So the streak continues, man. It's fascinating. If you look at the fights that we have coming up, it looks like, we could end up selling out the rest of the year. So, wow. Pretty fun.
That is fun. No doubt. The main event is, I think, a fascinating fight. Leon Edwards, the challenger in the welterweight title fight, going up against Kamaru Usman. Both of these guys undefeated since they met in 2015. Edwards lost that fight. A really good fight. I watched it again this week. A really good fight. He lost. He's won 9 in a row since then. Usman has won 13 in a row since then. Usman, amazingly enough, is trying to tie Anderson Silva's record of 16 consecutive wins in the UFC. Let's start right there. Do you think that is the most significant record there is, the wins in a row? Because you talked a lot about how difficult it is to win in the UFC. And you're talking about a guy that's won 15 in a row now trying to tie the UFC record.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, if you look at everything that Usman has accomplished since he's been here, from winning the Ultimate Fighter to winning the title to breaking all these records, it's a big deal. I mean, obviously, you can't deny he's the greatest welterweight of all time. Just off the competition that he's fought, now he's lapping. I mean, the Colby Covington fight alone. If Usman doesn't exist, Colby Covington's champion. You know what I mean? You got to start talking after this fight about him up there with John Jones and Anderson and GSP and all the other greats.
When I look at the greatest fighter of all time, I think I really focus on 3 fighters: Khabib, John Jones, and Kamaru. And I don't want to say disqualified John Jones, but John's had periods of inactivity because he had outside the ring trouble. And when you're grading at this highest level, right, those little things have to factor in. So to my way of thinking, it's got to either be Kamaru or Khabib. What is it to your way of thinking? I mean, do you feel like, despite all John's troubles, that he still deserves that?
Well, I think what's fascinating about John Jones is what he's done, even though that trouble was good. You think about what he was doing during the time that he was doing it. It's insane what that guy accomplished.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's going to be fascinating. Huh?
I said, no doubt.
Yeah. And, it's going to, when he comes back, potentially as a heavyweight, and he does, I mean, it's just, if you look at the time when John, it's always hard because you have to put everybody in in the time slot. If you look at the guys at the 205 division, at the time that he was dominating, the guys that he was beating and the way that he was beating them was unbelievable. And one thing that's fascinating too, this came up the other day, that Alexander Gustafsson really hasn't been the same since his fights with John Jones. It's just, John Jones is for all the headaches and everything outside of the octagon, it's pretty impressive what he's accomplished. But Kamaru Usman is the pound for pound best fighter in the world right now. And I look at him the same way that I look at John Jones. You look at the guys he's beat, how he beat them, and now he's beating them all twice.
Right. That's amazing. The Leon Edwards fight, the first time that they fought, Usman used a very wrestling heavy approach in that. He did have some striking in there, but certainly I think his striking was just kind of starting to develop at that point. So how do you see the fight changing now that we know that, Usman is a quality striker? That's Edwards' thing. Edwards is a striker. Usman now has developed, knocked out Masvidal, had a lot of wins over other fighters who were strikers. How do you think that changed the dynamic of the rematch?
Yeah, well, I think that's the other thing that's fascinating about Kamaru Usman. He started off as a straight wrestler. His game is completely well-rounded now. And the other thing about when you beat guys twice, all right, you face Kamaru Usman and you weren't ready for something. The second time, you were able to go back and get ready for, the holes in your game and the mistakes you thought you made, and you still couldn't beat him.
Yeah,
that's something.
And, Leon Edwards, I mean, I think he's gotten dogged unfairly, but some portion of the fan base because of what Masvidal did in that fight in England, where he hit him and everything. And I said this to, I think, Hunter Campbell yesterday. I said, when you really think about it, you look at the way Leon Edwards grew up and what he went through. He's really the guy that's the gangster, and he kind of got this, reputation maybe being a little soft because of what happened with Masvidal.
I don't think that he got a reputation for being soft. I mean, Masvidal went over and threw those punches quick. I don't think he expected it. I don't think that took anything away from Edwards. Edwards has just had a string of bad luck. Everything that could go wrong with fights coming up for this kid have gone wrong. But he's going into a situation now where he has the opportunity to write his own storybook ending, man. This is the stuff movies are made of. If he go in and derail Kamaru Usman.
I want to ask you this. I think Usman is at a point in his career that if you're going to win the title off him, you have to beat him twice, right? Because he's done so much that it would be unfair to him to not give him a rematch if he were to lose the fight. So, I mean, that makes it really difficult on the other guy because you go, hey, Edwards hasn't have to just beat him once. He has to beat him twice. Do you think if Usman loses, there's a rematch regardless?
Yeah. I never say that. I never say, but yeah. The guy's the pound for pound best fighter in the world. He's never lost in the UFC. Won the Ultimate Fighter. It was the record to this and that. Yeah, he deserves a rematch.
Do you? I mean, you're not a fighter, but you've been around fighters all your life. Do you think that puts any extra thing on Edwards' mind? Like, hey, I have to do this twice, or is it just do you think he just going to go out and free will and do what he can do to win the fight?
Nah, it's just to do it once. I'm sure he's not even thinking about twice. Just to do it once. You know what I mean? To be the guy rolling in here and being the guy to upset Usman with all this stuff going on is huge.
The co-main event, I think, is a fascinating fight, and I mean, a couple of years ago would have been really Luke Rockhold against Paulo Costa, two guys that, Luke Rockhold hasn't fought in over 3 years, coming off a loss to Jan Blachowicz. What do you make of that fight, and where does a win leave the winner, given, both are extremely talented guys, but, things haven't gone their way a lot recently?
Yeah, you never know which one's going to show up or how it's going to go, but if they both show up and do what they're, what they should do, it should be a great fight.
Right. What do you, have you talked to Luke Rockhold? Have you had any kind of, do you have any expectation of him, especially because he's going back down to 185 from 205, and it's been 3 years since he fought. Roy Jones proved in boxing, he won the heavyweight title and he couldn't go back down. That, when you cut that weight, after putting it on, it's difficult. What do you see out of Rockhold? Have you talked to him at all?
No, I haven't. I don't know. I mean, this is, this is a fight for him that I'm assuming would probably, if you win or you lose. If you win, all right, I'm back. I'm in the middleweight division. And if you lose, I don't know. Maybe you see the window closing.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I want to ask you about the third fight down on the card, and I want to specifically ask about Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo against Merab Dvalishvili. I can't even say his name, Dvalishvili. I'm glad I'm not John Anik, right? I don't have to repeat that. But, do you think Aldo is kind of going through another rebirth? Because it seemed like, he was the title, he was the champion, everybody called him the GOAT. He lost and he had a little, lull there. And now he seems like he's on the way back up. And it's like he reinvigorated himself some way. Can you comment on a little bit on sort of the way Aldo has gotten himself back in contention and back near the top again?
I mean, it's incredible. If you look at how long this guy dominated in his division as a champion, and then now at his age with these younger guys, he's ranked number 3 in the world in a nasty bantamweight division. I mean, you got Peter Yan, TJ Dillashaw, Sandhagen, Marlon Vera, Merab, and the list goes on of just murderers in that division, and he's ranked number 3. It's very impressive.
Yeah, no, it really is amazing. I want to switch back gears a little bit, talk about UFC San Diego last week. You and I texted a little bit, and you thought it was a better fight than the fight card in Vegas the previous week when you had, what was it, 11 for 11 finishes, right? What was your favorite fight on that card? I thought the Landwehr David Onama fight was just, spectacular. Obviously, Vera's finish was amazing, but what was your favorite fight on that card?
Yeah, I mean, that was the fight of the night. It's hard not to say that was the best fight. It was insane. But the crazy thing was in San Diego, it was an early fight in the day, and we had it just had the energy and the buzz of a pay-per-view. Felt like a pay-per-view. The girls' fight, the two Yasmins, was unbelievable. And 20 and 23 years old, and you could sit there and watch that fight and see the future. That right. Both of these girls, even the loser, are the future and what women's fighting is going to look like, a couple of years from now. You got girls like Rose Namajunas, Weili Zhang, Marina Rodriguez, Jan, Mackenzie Dern, the list goes on. Valentina Shevchenko, right? And then you see two young girls like this in a fight like that. Unbelievable. And it was a really, really good night.
I thought that fight typified. I talked to Kayla Harrison, the great fighter from the PFL, and she talked about, what she's seeing now is that fighters are coming into the sport as MMA fighters, that they have developed as MMA fighters. They didn't train in jiu-jitsu or train in wrestling and come into the sport. They've trained as MMA fighters, and that makes a difference. And I thought that going back and watching that fight between those two women, it seemed like that they had that, they were MMA fighters for a long time.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I mean, if you told anybody in the stands that probably didn't know, these girls are 20 and 23 years old. They're babies, for Christ's sakes. You know what I mean? You get into your prime when you're 27, 28 years old as a fighter. And those two look like, I mean, the one girl, the one Yasmin, has I think her record was like 13-4. She has 17 fights.
Right.
She's 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And you got a 17-year-old, by the way, coming to fight on the Contender Series, I saw.
Yeah. The Contender's going to be a fun season, man. I'm already having a blast on this thing. Tonight, by the way, for those of you, Contender Series on ESPN Plus tonight.
The Dana White and Bo Nickel Contender Series, has it become known now?
No, it's apparently now the Bo Nichols Contender Series. So I'm okay with that.
Bo Nickel had a great tweet last week. He said, "I'll be fighting on September 27th on the Dana White and Bo Nickel Contender Series."
I love it.
I thought it was classic. And you know what? I feel bad for Bo Nickel because what else could the freaking guy do in his fight? And he doesn't get a contract, right? A lot of lesser fighters got contracts. What are you going to expect out of him next time if what he did last time wasn't enough?
Well, the beautiful thing about this next, first of all, the kid was 1-0. You know what I mean? I haven't brought a guy in that was 1-0 since like Brock Lesnar. And to give him 2 dates on the Contender Series, don't feel too sorry for him. He's going to do just fine. But his next opponent is somebody with a lot more experience. So he's going to take on somebody with a lot more experience, and we'll see what he does. And I will determine that night if he's ready to come into the UFC at 2-0.
You know what tells me that this guy is a good fighter? I saw other fighters talking about him. Luke Rockhold made a comment. I think it was Rockhold. I don't want to misattribute it, but I believe Rockhold said he would get destroyed if he was in the UFC right now. And that tells me if guys like Luke Rockhold that are 37 years old and been in the UFC for a long time are talking about him, that this kid can fight and they're noticing him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard to say. You want to move people the right way. You don't want to, move anybody too fast and stuff like that. But it's hard to say until they fight. When he fights, obviously he went in and looked absolutely phenomenal. Right. You're absolutely right. He couldn't have done anything better. He couldn't have looked any better. Now he'll step up in competition, and if he does the same thing to this guy, then we'll see what he does in the UFC.
Now, to roll back to San Diego for a second, I mean, we haven't heard your public comments on Marlon Vera's win. I mean, a really remarkable win. I mean, because Dominic Cruz was just fighting brilliantly. And I don't know if you saw the tweet from Eric Nixick that went out about 2 minutes before the final kick. Eric Nixick, the coach, said, you know, he called the shot basically.
That he leans his head that way and he should throw a head kick.
A left kick that way, yeah, no doubt. What's next for Marlon Vera? Where do you see him going? And I mean, he has morphed into one of the elite guys. I mean, I don't know when he fought Sean O'Malley if a lot of people considered him a championship contender, but I think for sure everybody does today.
One of the things in that fight with Cruz is Cruz was doing what Cruz does, and what was impressive is Marlon Vera dropped him like 3 times in the fight. And didn't go crazy, didn't overextend, didn't jump on him. He was patient. He took his time. It's almost like he felt like he knew he was going to catch. He was eventually going to catch up and knock him out, and he did.
Yeah, it was really amazing. What did you say to Cruz after the fight, if anything?
What did I think of him?
No, what did you say to him? Did you talk to him at all?
No, I didn't see him after the fight. Yeah.
What do you think is next for him then?
He fought a great fight. I mean, Cruz is 38 years old. You know what I mean? The way that he moves, the footwork, the awkwardness that he has, that he always throws at you. I mean, it was all still there.
Yeah.
He got caught.
So you're open to coming back if he wants to.
Yeah, Chito Vera hits hard. Every time Chito Vera caught him, he hurt him. And Vera took his time and was very confident that he was eventually going to knock Cruz out, and he did.
I want to change gears here a little bit. Let me ask you 2 things. First, about Shane Burgos he announced yesterday he signed at the PFL. He's a ranked fighter, only 31 years old. Why not make an offer to keep a guy that's in your rankings, that just got in your rankings and is relatively young? What was your thought process in letting a guy like that walk?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't want to answer that question. Basically, there were some mistakes that were made here. Some that he should have still been here. We respect him very much, and I wish him the best.
So the mistakes were made on your side and the administrative side.
100%, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, big mistakes were made over here.
Interesting. So asking you that leads into my next question. You did a thing with GQ where you answered questions on tweets, and one of the questions from Twitter was, why does the issue of fighter pay come up? And you said what you often say, but you said one thing that I think got a lot of people, and maybe it was misinterpreted or whatever, but I just want to read you this quote because I want to get your take on this. You said fighters all want to make more money. Boxing has absolutely been destroyed because of money and all the things that go on. So nobody has an argument with that. But then you said it's never going to happen while I'm here. And I know ESPN for sure took that, and a lot of people took that as pay raises are never going to happen, because that was a headline on ESPN. Pay raises never going to happen. The rest of it was, believe me, these guys get paid what they're supposed to get paid. They eat what they kill. They get a percentage of the pay-per-view buys, and money is spread out amongst all the fighters. So are you really?
So wait a minute. What you're telling me is some scumbag media guys out there watched an interview that wasn't even theirs, took it out of context, and wrote stories about it saying the fighter pay is never going to go up. I'm fucking shocked.
Well,
come on, get the fuck out of here. You shouldn't even be writing a fucking story about anything unless you do the fucking interview. You're gonna watch a fun GQ Q&A and write a story off it. You're a piece of shit.
You're not a piece of shit for doing that.
You're a piece of shit journalist, because if that's the question you wanted to ask, if you had a question about that, then fucking call me and ask me. Because that's not what it meant. You're a typical scumbag piece of shit fucking journalist if you fucking write a story off some fucking goofy fun GQ interview, right? And you write a serious fighter pay story about it. You, and you should never fucking be able to write for anybody ever again. So what I said was, boxing has absolutely been destroyed because of guys being overpaid, corruption, and all this other shit. You know what I mean? I'm never going to let the things that happened in boxing happen here while I'm here. That's what it meant. And if you were any kind of real journalist, you'd call and ask. So I don't give a flying who wrote it, even if it was ESPN. You're a fucking piece of shit.
Well, and it was ESPN, let's be honest here, but
so well, there you go.
And I'll disagree with you on that. Let me tell you why, because
I can't wait to hear it.
A lot of times, fighters or somebody make comment and it's newsworthy comments. A lot of times it's, hey, so-and-so is going to fight so-and-so, right? And that becomes newsworthy comment. And you're not, available to reporters 24/7 to be talking about every little piece of news that comes out. So they took a video that you said, and they wrote a story. Now, I asked you the question just now because I kind of felt like you did not say what was reported. I kind of felt like,
oh, you know why? Because you have common sense. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. So I'm doing a fun GQ piece. I wasn't sitting down with 60 Minutes talking about fighter pay. It's a fun, edited video piece.
Right.
Edited. That wasn't the full interview. It wasn't a serious interview. It was a fun, edited piece. And ESPN, the leader in sports, is going to write a story based about fighter pay based off that video. Give me a break.
You know what? I'm really happy about your answer. My guy Armando is going to be having to hit that beat button a million times with that answer. I'm going to put him to work.
Yeah, get to work, Armando.
Okay, so here's just to clarify, and I think you did clarify.
And that's why you're wrong. Admit you're wrong.
I'm not going to admit
admit you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
You're wrong. I didn't sit down with 60 Minutes and do a full interview.
No, I agree with
where you're getting the whole thing. It's an edited, funny, fun piece. You're going to write a story based on about fighter pay based off that piece on GQ? Are you kidding me?
Well, you notice that I didn't write that, right? So
I'm not saying you.
No,
I understand why. No, you're wrong, Kevin. Admit you're wrong. And so is ESPN.
Just like I was wrong when I said you didn't need title fights to be the head of pay-per-views, right?
I didn't see the story. I don't even know who wrote it. But you're not a journalist. You're a scumbag. So there you go. Whoever wrote it.
So here's what I you're
with ESPN. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call me. Like, we're not going to respond to ESPN asking, "Hey, you said this about fighter pay. What does this mean?" Admit you're wrong, Kevin.
I can't. I've never admit that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like your buddy Trump. I'm like your buddy Trump. I can never admit.
Yeah, ever.
So I just want to clarify this last thing that, and I think you did a pretty good job, but so you were not saying, which a lot of people interpreted you were saying, that the fighter pay is never going to increase. That's not what you were saying.
Fighter pay has gone through the roof since the sale of 2016. Fighter pay continues to go like this. Yes, you think I'm going to sit there and say, fighter pay will never go up while I'm here? That is the dumbest thing that I have ever heard. And you know, stupid you have to be to think that that's what I said in that interview when I was talking about boxing.
Well, I'm glad I didn't think that. So there I am.
Well,
so.
but the bottom line is this: we live in this world today where all these lazy sacks of shit who aren't real journalists watch other people's especially when you're watching an edited piece that's supposed to be a fun, funny piece, and you're going to write a story off fighter pay on that. Give me a break. You're a zero. You're a zero.
Armando's going to hate me now because now we're past the point of bleeping. This is he's going to
stop talking to me then.
Well, I'm going to let you go because you've been talking a lot. That is UFC President Dana White. I'm Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports, UFC 278 on Saturday in Salt Lake City. Dana, have a good show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.